When it comes to getting my fish, I first got these two goldfish that were gifted to me in a fishbowl from my girlfriend's mom. So she was basically gonna release the fish out into the lake, but my girlfriend asked me if I would like to keep them. I'm like, I never really thought about keeping fish. But since it was, summertime, didn't really have a lot going on, had a lot of free time, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna get into keeping these goldfish, and yeah, that's where I got those from, and it's been fun ever since. So I knew nothing about keeping goldfish. So as I researched, I just Googled, how do I keep fish, this and that, and it turns out that I came across a bunch of posts saying that goldfish are one of the most waste producing fish and you should never keep them in a goldfish bowl because they produce a lot of waste. And this bowl that I was gifted, it didn't have a filter on it, and one thing that I read is that goldfish definitely need a filter, and they need a filter that's like 4 times the amount rated for the tank that they need. So you kind of need to overfiltrate for the goldfish. And one thing I learned about was two things. First one was a fish tank cycle, and the other thing was the nitrogen cycle. So a fish tank cycle is basically the process of creating the nitrogen cycle. So what happens is a fish tank cycle is the process of producing the bioload is what they call it. There's a lot of science that goes into keeping fish tanks. So what the fish tank cycle is the process of building your nitrogen cycle. And after it's built, it's called a cycled fish tank, which takes about a month. So what I've seen is that if you get a fish tank set up, you have to wait a month for it to cycle before adding fish to it. Or you can buy beneficial bacteria, which kind of jumpstarts that process. So the nitrogen cycle, this is where a lot of science comes in. So there's something called ammonia that fish produces, or fish produce when they eat food and they poop it out. That poop and the excess food in the water creates ammonia, which is really toxic to fish, and at any level it's toxic to fish. You don't want any ammonia in your water. But what beneficial bacteria does, it eats up the ammonia and turns it into a less toxic component called nitrate. And then what happens from there is that the bacteria takes the nitrite, and turns it into nitrate. And nitrate is less toxic at higher amounts. So if you have a little bit in your fish tank, that's okay. And that's what I learned. The whole nitrogen cycle, fish tank cycle, nothing I ever thought would be related to keeping fish at all. And I didn't know there's a lot of science to it. And there's also different fish require different water parameters like pH, acidity, and alkalinity, water hardness, temperature. Temperature's a big one. And yeah, there's a lot of things that I learned. I didn't know keeping fish was that detailed like that. My first upgrade was taking them out the little bowl because they didn't have any room to swim. I was like, I gotta get a bigger tank. So I got a 10-gallon tank, and that is kind of like the smallest tank that you can kind of buy from a fish store. So I got a 10-gallon tank, got them set up with some gravel in there, and I think, I got a 10-gallon fish tank, and then I got a filter. I got a good filter that was rated for about maybe a 30-gallon tank, so a little bit of that overfiltration for goldfish that they need because they produce a lot of waste. And then after that, one thing that I got was this really cool LED light that goes on top, and you could change all the colors. There's this cool feature that mimics sunrise and sunset. So if you could set it to whatever time you want, but the light will slowly start to get bright and then stay bright for a certain amount of time, and then it would get dim. And something cool about this light is that they call it like a full spectrum LED light. And if you were to put live plants in there, they'd help grow the live plants and keep them healthy and stuff like that. I know I talked about my 10-gallon tank. I actually upgraded them to a bigger tank, just a 20-gallon, not too big of a size change. Um, One of the main reasons why I did this is because you can only have a certain amount of fish for a certain size tank. So I wanted to get more fish, but in order to do that, I had to get a bigger tank. So with this tank, I now have 3 goldfish. My first one is orange, so I named him Orange Juice. That's the first name, and then I have 2 other goldfish. They're spotted and really colorful, so I kind of named them in a pair, and their names are Dippin' Dots. And then I have 5 little minnows. They're called gold cloud minnows. They're gold and red and colorful, and I named them in a group, and their names are the Amigos. There's something about fish keeping, just walking up to a tank and then the fish kind of come up to you expecting you to feed them, so they kind of just act like maniacs, nibbling at the top of the water, running around. But when it comes to what I study in school, there's not a whole lot of a big correlation between the two. I know there's a lot of research that I do for art and kind of stuff that inspire me personally. So when completing like art projects, a lot of the times they ask you to create something that you like and that comes from personal experiences or just whatever you experience. And I think that could go hand in hand. So if I were to like make another painting or another ceramic piece, maybe I'd use my pet goldfish to help inspire me to make that next project.